I know that my very first time on the radio on Jewish London as a guest, I phoned my mum and dad to say, you know, what did you think? What did you think? And they said, well, what did your husband say? You know, is he happy with you going out in the evening to do that? You know, how did he feel about it? You know, who was looking after the children? And they didn't say anything about whether I was any good or whether I was funny or whether it was, you know, a pleasure to hear me or anything of that kind. It was just, how does your husband feel about you doing it? That's why I like International Women's Day. Okay. Come on, women. Come on. Yes.
Right, Vanessa Feltz. When was the last time that you had a day off?
Well, I have holidays like most people. I think I had a day. I had a week off relatively recently for the last half term, and I went to Ireland with my family. So I do have holidays sometimes.
But you are often dubbed the most hard-working woman in Britain, aren't you? I mean, your work ethic is extraordinary. Where does that come from?
I think it comes from a fear of starving to death because you haven't got any money and nobody's going to buy you lunch. My father's favourite maxim, and it isn't when you think about it awfully kind or generous, was, who's going to give you £1? And the answer was no one. Not your father, of course. Certainly not your father or your mother or any neighbour or anyone who loves you. No one was ever going to give you £1. And actually, I have found him, unfortunately, to be quite right. I've found lots of people who've wanted to take £1, but not very many who would give me £1. And so I felt tremendous pressure to earn the money and you know, to keep working. And also, as you know, when you're freelance, you're always scared that if you don't do the job or you don't take the offer, they won't ask you again. And, you know, somebody else will come along that they prefer or whatever it is. I don't know. So it's been a mixture of blind panic and fear of having to send my children up the chimney, I think.
And does a lot of it have to do with being a woman? Would you have had an easier ride if you'd been a man?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't think I've spent much time thinking of myself as a working woman. I think I've just worked and been grateful for the work and the opportunity and just wanted to keep on doing it and not spent much time wondering if they've chosen me because they couldn't find a man to do it or they've chosen me because they thought I was better than a man who might want to do it. I've just toiled away without examining very much whether it's to do with being a woman or despite being a woman, I suppose.
You have just chaired a panel for International Women's Day, just a reminder there. And so does that kind of thing, does it mean anything to you? Do you think we should be having things like International Women's Day?
Yes, I do.
Because I'm not entirely convinced it has changed anything or does anything.
I'm all in favour of it. I'm all in favour of anything at all that bigs up the sorority. I like sisterhood. I like other women shoring up other women. I like support from women. I like women who network. I've never been any good at it. In fact, I've never really known how you do it or exactly whether if you tried, it would be so transparent that people would laugh in your face and run away from you. So I've never really done any networking, but I quite like the idea of it. And I certainly like something that celebrates female achievement and opens pathways for other women to think that they could maybe do the same or better or differently. And I like a ceremony anyway. I like a special day that marks it from other days. I like all that kind of thing. So I have been really pleased as anything to be the host of this excellent panel. And actually the answers to the questions were incredible. They were exceptionally thoughtful. They were very, very different from one another. And the panellists were Nicola Adams, the boxer, and Kate Ferdinand, who, of course, was on a reality TV show, but is now married to Rio Ferdinand and is now the poster woman for blended families. And boy, doesn't she talk about them sensitively and modestly and while acknowledging how difficult they are. She's absolutely terrific about that and has been a sort of real beacon to other families struggling through. She's great. Nicola Adams was superb, incredibly funny and charming and self-effacing and having been the first and the best at absolutely everything and just absolutely smashed it out of the park. You think all she'd really done was gone and made an egg sandwich or something and sat down on the sofa. She's really, really great. And then we had Montana Brown, who was on Love Island in 2017 and talked about the coming out of the show and being absolutely assassinated on the grounds of her looks. Now, I thought she was a kind of world-class beauty, and she was roundly and scathingly criticised for, I don't know, the size of her nose, the size of her teeth, the size of her lips, every single possible thing that could absolutely lacerate your confidence and diminish you. And she has somehow risen above it, and you know, she's founded a business, and she kicked all the bald men out, and now she's just a kind of female-empowered business. I mean, I thought she was great, very articulate, very funny, really nice. Is still friendly with all her school friends and talked about that and talked about when she was at her lowest, resurrecting her hobbies from her youth, like singing in a chamber choir and things like that, and getting incredible solace and sustenance from doing the things that had made her happy before reality TV. So I really liked her. And we had Sarah Dines on it as well, and she's the minister kind of sort of campaigning against domestic violence and FGM and forced marriages and that kind of thing. She went to a comprehensive school. Lots of people said that she couldn't succeed as a barrister, but she did. Her mum said, you can be anything you want to be and you're as good as anyone, girl. And she was, and she is, and she's mum of 4 boys, and she was great. And I just thought they were 4 very different voices. And when you're the chair, it's brilliant, because if you don't want to answer any of the questions, you just don't. So I just didn't for quite a lot of them. So that was good.
Do you think that on International Women's Day, it's also worth considering what a male panel of a similar kind of backgrounds would have to say? Because increasingly, with that misogyny that we are becoming, I think, more aware of, there is a danger, isn't there, in women talking to women without men being in the room. They are the people who need to hear us most at the moment, I
Funnily
think.
enough, there were some men in the room and they were very quiet. So I don't know what they were thinking. Certainly it was all being filmed. So it's going to be, it's being discussed on your show now. It's going to be, put out in various other media outlets. So there will be men who can enter the room metaphorically and hear what women had to say. Do I think there should have been one token man made to walk the plank or suffer some kind of terrible embarrassment to make up for all that we've suffered at their hands? Yeah, of course I do. And I can think of a very good candidate for that, but I definitely wouldn't stoop so low as I'm being so dignified. So I wouldn't say who, but why not?
No, never lose your dignity.
Oh, definitely
never.
not.
Can we just talk about actually the aspect of the criticisms that Montana Brown has had to face up to? It is ludicrous, isn't it, how damaged we can all be by some lumpen oaf of an individual out there somewhere on the internet having a go at our appearance.
Yes.
It's just madness. And when will it stop? When will we stop caring about that kind of rubbish?
I don't know. It's a hell of a good question. I got my comments on Instagram switched off. So if anybody wishes to call me something revolting, I don't have to hear it. And I don't see why I should. I liken it to, whoever it was who went to see his therapist and said every single day I go and see my father and he punches me in the face. And the therapist said, well, how about you don't go and see your father? So I reckon if every time you look on social media, there are people saying horrible things about you, why not switch it off? And I switched mine off. So I think everybody loves me on Instagram. They adore me.
Yeah.
Certainly no one tells me they don't.
That's excellent.
Because they
Vanessa.
can't. How about that?
And that's how it should be. But what drives that person to sit wherever they might be? It could be at home, could be on the underground, could be on the bus. And they ping it out there. What do they think they're doing and why? And how do they justify it to themselves?
I don't know if they even think it through. I don't know. I think it's the kind of thing that people used to say to other human beings while watching telly. So Cilla Black would come on and you'd say to your mum, oh, I could never stand her, or, who does she think she is, or why is her hair that colour, or blimey, or whatever it is. But now you're not doing that because there's no communal watching of telly and everybody's split up from everybody else. You're probably living on your own. You see something or think something or read something. It ignites some horrible feelings of inadequacy or jealousy or malevolence or power in you, and you just shoot off some horrible message about the person. Normally in the old days it would have been lost in the ether between you and your noxious mother together sitting there like horrible harpies dissecting total strangers in your living room. Well, now you can send that message whizzing towards the eyes and ears of the person that you're thinking about. I mean, it gives you a kind of fake empowerment, but obviously as the potential object of those nasty messages, I think you can empower yourself by switching them off and not reading them. Then they're irrelevant because you haven't seen them. I think that's quite good.
And what do you think you would have been like, and what would your attitudes have been if you were a young woman and that had been happening to you? Because in a sense, we're all slightly lucky, I think, that we didn't live our 20s with that kind of glare and that kind of social media.
Well, I didn't have social
on us.
media, but I got famous when I was about 30 odd. And I had all kinds of utterly poisonous things written about me, largely about my appearance. Breasts like World War I barrage balloons. She looks like the woman who ate her audience.
And this would be written by women sometimes.
Sometimes women and sometimes men.
Yeah.
Perfect face for radio, Golders green hair, all kinds of things. And you can see I remember them. This is the thing.
Yeah.
And it was, and in some cases, I've been famous for about 35 years.
Do you remember any of the comments saying that you were really good at your job?
I wish I did. I remember the horrible ones because they're so vivid and because they kind of they burn themselves onto your consciousness in a particular way. You can never quite get rid of them. But I became I mean, not inured to and not really used to, but familiar with the experience of total strangers saying horrible things about me, usually based on my appearance, sometimes other things. And it isn't easy. It's horrible. And sometimes people ask me, interviewers say, well, have you developed a rhinoceros hide? And the answer is no, of course not. How do I feel about it? I feel just like anybody else would feel. I feel horrible.
Do you believe that you're good?
At what?
Your job?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I do. I think I'm good
glad
at my
about
job.
that.
Sure, I do. Yeah, good at my job. Yes, I thought you meant good as a human being. Am I a good person?
no,
I
we'll
was-
assess that
I was
later.
about to tussle with that one. I was thinking, gosh, do I?
Well, no,
oh
that's
my
an
God.
even better question. Are you good,
Are you
Vanessa?
good? I think I am. I think I'm a good girl. I mean, I think I'm trying to be a decent person, and I think people who work with me very often, if I've ever changed jobs, people come with me from different companies
That's a
and
good
even
sign.
moving all the way across the country. I
Yeah.
think that's a good sign. I mean, I've tried to be a decent person. I hope people often I do meet people who say, "Why I met you in 1983 and you lent me your hairbrush or you gave me a paracetamol or you helped me do that." And I'm always I think, "Oh, thank God I did that. Good." I can't remember it, but I'm really pleased. So I don't know. I'm trying to I'm scuttling around for some testimony to prove I'm good. I hope so. I think so.
Well, Vanessa, I met you. You won't remember this at all, but when
God.
you were working
Pretend
at
you
GLR.
remember.
Yeah, just pretend.
I hope she's not going to say anything bad
No,
now.
when you were doing Jewish London at GLR, which would have been, nearly 30 years ago.
Yes.
And you were absolutely lovely to me.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm pleased
So
you
there
said
you
that.
go.
That's very nice. Jewish London was absolutely glorious. It was so marvellous. I used to call it the bar mitzvah of the airwaves. I used to call it British broadcasting with a diced carrot on the top. And people used to say at GLR, which, as you remember, was a very right-on kind
By
of
the way,
station.
I need to interrupt to say that
Oh,
was the
sorry.
BBC's very fashionable local radio station.
Yes.
Now renamed
Radio
BBC
London,
London.
BBC Radio London.
Yeah,
But in
okay.
those days it was, and I've only just left it. I've been there all
Yeah.
that time, 33 years. And so people used to say to me, Vanessa, there are your guests over there. Because my guests used to dress as if they were coming to a bar mitzvah. I think they used to bring gefilte fish balls in their handbags. And so, honestly, business mergers took place in the lobby. People got married. All sorts of things happened. It was the most wonderful show. We used to have a unicycling rabbi, Holocaust survivors, Jackie Mason, the Jerusalem Post, the Wheat So Bake Off. I mean, it was really fun.
It was a good
And that was
show.
my first ever show. I used to get paid 50 quid to present it. And I used to spend about 3 days a week prepping for it and learning how to do it because I didn't really know how to do radio. I used to write 20 questions for every single guest in case I ran out.
How did you get that gig?
I was a guest on the show originally. I was a columnist at the Jewish Chronicle and I was asked in to talk about a column I'd written. And when I was in front of the microphone, I amazed myself by being far funnier and more interesting than I was without the microphone, which was an absolute shock. And then I said, oh, please, God, let them ask me back, please. And they did. And then I remember driving the car, I had little babies in the back of the car, and I'm thinking, oh, I've been on radio 11 times. I've been on radio 17 times. Unpaid, didn't get paid. And then eventually, after about a year or 2 years, they asked me to present the show. That's how. So wasn't that great?
And so what did that young woman think of? Where did you think you'd be 30 years down the line? Did you have...
I hoped I'd be married to my original husband, and I hoped I'd be, I don't know, I suppose surrounded by beautiful grandchildren and living happily ever after. I didn't think much further than that. But
So
I do
did
know
you
that
genuinely not imagine a career for yourself?
not at all, I mean, I was a journalist. I was, columnist and journalist. I think I hoped I'd carry on doing that. But I know that my very first time on the radio on Jewish London as a guest, I phoned my mum and dad to say, what did you think? And they said, well, what did your husband say? Is he happy with you going out in the evening to do that? How did he feel about it? Who was looking after the children? And they didn't say anything about whether I was any good or whether I was funny or whether it was, a pleasure to hear me or anything of that kind. It was just, how does your husband feel about you doing it? That's why I like International Women's Day. Come on, women. Come on. Yes.
We're not going to go into your personal life, but everybody listening, Vanessa, will know that you've had a really tough time lately. And it just strikes me that sometimes women are harder on themselves than anybody else is on them in a way. And we'll come up with every excuse to blame ourselves for whatever crap has descended upon us. Do you believe that might be the case with you?
Yeah, I do. I think it's hard if you're supposed to be a clever woman or think of yourself as someone clever and someone who's read lots of poems and lots of books and lots of stuff about psychology and is meant to have some kind of insights into human behaviour. And then you have kind of placed your love and your trust and your your heart and your soul and everything else in somebody who turns out very, very much not to have deserved it. And you feel every possible kind of heartbreak, obviously, and every possible kind of pain, but also you feel incredibly stupid. And that's a horrid combination all at once, when you're heartbroken and devastated and also feel like a complete idiot. So I'm doing my best to put my best foot forward and soldier on. And you know, I don't think anyone wants to hear what a rough time I'm having. It's so boring, and there's nothing new or special about my heartbreak at all.
No, but
I'm you know, I've been to work every single day, and I've had a television camera stuck in my face for 3 hours a day, every day, including the day I found out, and it was several weeks before it made it into the press. And I think that's the best thing to do. I think surround yourself with, you know, close friends, family, have as much fun as I possibly can. The thing that upsets me most about this, I think, really is this. My mum died at the age of 57, and I have genuinely found every single day that I've lived longer than her to be a gift. I never expected it. I'm thrilled to have it. I'm pleased to be alive, not dead. Of course I am. And I don't want this to spoil it. I don't want to be... I know you don't get to choose whether you're grief-stricken or not. I get that. But it's just such a shame to have this gift of a longer life and then have it so roundly squashed and pulverised by somebody else. And I don't want to. That's why I'm kind of rising up and trying to really fight it and fight on and have as much happiness every day as I can. Because, I mean, I don't want to squander these days by being miserable. What a damn shame, right?
But I think the support for you is overwhelming. I've read nothing but praise for you and sympathy and support.
It's really mattered to me a lot. I've been amazed by it. I thought people could very easily have said the absolute opposite, actually. So I am very, very pleased and very shored up, and actually, you know, find it difficult to sleep at the moment, etc. And do spend quite a lot of time in the middle of the night reading all these amazing DMs, and people tell their whole life story and what they've been through and how they've come out the other end. And I am comforted by it. I am. It does work. It really does. So anybody who's taken the time to reach out, and my God, it's hundreds of thousands of people. I can't even tell you the number of people. There's an infinite number of messages every time. And I try replying, and then more and more and more. And I think 3.7 million people have seen the Instagram post where all I say is, you know, I'm sorry that my relationship's over, and you know, once the trust and relationship's gone, you got to move on. And anyway, it's best foot forward. That's all I say. I don't say anything else. And 3.7 million people have seen it and responded, and God knows what. So, you know, I mean, I know it's virtual, but it feels very real to me, and I'm extremely grateful for it.
And you will not be defined by this really quite small period of time in your life. It just won't. You won't allow it to happen to yourself, will you?
I don't know if you're asking me or telling me. I was hoping
I'm
you were
kinda
telling me.
telling- I'm
I was
sort of
hoping you were
telling
telling
you.
me. I was hoping you were
Jane's
telling me.
usually
You
telling
will
me.
not.
Oh, you
and then
will
I was
not.
going to say, good, okay, I won't then. I was hoping you were telling me.
Okay,
Tell me.
I'm saying, please, Vanessa, don't allow
I
yourself
definitely
to
don't
be
want
defined.
to. Of course
No.
I don't want to be defined by that.
I mean, you can wallow in complete despair for at least 6 months.
I'm 7 weeks now.
Okay, well, you've got a while to go,
7
Mrs.
weeks.
Cut yourself some slack
Yeah.
there.
I think it's such an interesting point you make about losing a parent, because after that age, I mean, it's a real monkey on your back, isn't it?
Totally.
It's a very odd feeling. What do you do in your kind of darkest moments about that? Because it's your own mortality, isn't it, that's just knocking on your door.
Well, I wasn't
every
having
day.
darkest moments, you see. I was thinking, gosh, what was my mother doing at this age? Well, she was dead. What am I doing? Well, I've just jumped off a motorbike because I got delivered here on the back of a limo bike. I'm just about to do a 3-hour TV show and radio show here at my new job at News UK. I'm going out tonight with a really good friend. I have just chaired this fabulous International Women's Day symposium. It was great. I'm about to eat a sandwich, which I've hidden in my bag because I haven't had a chance to eat anything all day. Of course, I'm trying not to eat, which has been one of the other underlying pressures of
no,
my
don't
life.
do
Just do
that,
not eat.
Vanessa, don't do
And what
that.
about don't drink, don't eat, don't do anything? I'm trying not to do anything unwise. Also, not to be too wise. If I ever get the opportunity to be less wise, maybe I'll take it. I don't know. I'm trying to not have any dark, deep
You
thingamy
are
bobs.
a brilliant, clever woman, and you've got to be that person.
Well,
Don't-
she is.
Trying to be. I am trying to.
I am not a trained therapist, but I do.
Do I look as if I need therapy? I obviously do.
Nobody needs it from me.
Oh my God.
What are your hopes then for the next 5-10 years? Let's just leave that episode.
Okay, I'm
behind,
hoping
Vanessa.
for fun and laughter, love, adventure. I'm hoping my children will flourish and my grandchildren and be long and happy and beacons unto the nation. I'm hoping that my show goes from success to even more roaring success. I'm hoping to have all sorts of opportunities. I feel a bit like Lionel Blair. God rest his soul, I once interviewed Lionel Blair and he was at least 85 or something at the time. And I said, Lionel, what are you hoping for? And he said, well, wouldn't mind a leading role in a Hollywood movie. And I thought, oh God, Lionel. And I get it now. I see why. You just think, well, I could do that, couldn't I? Could do that. I feel a bit annoyed that Boris hasn't ennobled me, though.
Well,
why hasn't he got me on the list? I was charming to him. He came every single 4 weeks to my show at Radio London when he was Mayor of London. We used to make him a nice coffee and everything. And I reckon if he wants his father to be a Sir, I could have been Princess Vanessa at the very least. I'm a bit miffed about that, really.
Well, I think we'll ennoble you. I'm not sure you'd want to be on that list. I think that's a bit tainted.
I'm not sure this is the list to be on.
Wouldn't I want to be on it?
No.
Wait,
I wouldn't mind some ermine. Fake ermine, obviously.
Okay. Because it is International Women's Day, I know this is almost an impossible question to answer, but if we've got younger women listening who are at the start of their...
That's Jane uncorking a bottle of champagne.
Terrible wind. I do apologise. It's my age.
Those are the sound effects from the sound effects department.
Start of your adult journey as a young woman, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given that you'd like to pass on?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I think the best piece of advice I was ever given is do your homework. So nobody can ever say she wasn't across it, she didn't get it, she asked the stupid question, she didn't grasp it. Be prepared and don't think you know everything. And I do think, I know this is generalising and I don't mean to be anti-men because I'm not actually. I'm all in favour and all applicants should definitely submit their credentials in triplicate right now. So I'm very much in favour of men in many positions actually when I think about it. But I do think there are some blokes that I'm sure we all know in this business and industry who really pride themselves on knowing absolutely nothing. They don't do their homework. They are either not sure who they're interviewing, they're not sure why, they haven't brushed up on the subject, they found it beneath them or boring. And you can hear the sort of hollow vacuum of their ignorance echoing as they ask the most inane questions. And I think they get away with it. They've got a certain kind of swagger, braggadocio, and God knows what that means nobody ever really challenges them. And I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person that didn't know what I was talking about and coasted through. So when you say, are you a workaholic or whatever you ask me, do you ever have a day off? The answer is, of course, I sometimes have a day off, but I do work hard because I want to make sure that I'm worth it. I'm, worthwhile. I'm not just a kind of waste of air and a waste of space. That's what I'm trying to do anyway.
You are never those things.
Oh, thanks.
How absolutely lovely. Absolutely lovely. Thank you. If you enjoyed that, what should people do?
Well, the best thing would be if you could listen to us on Times Radio, Monday to Thursday, 3 till 5, Jane and Fee.